that goes all the way up, and it can continue on. That's how we used to watch it.
Yeah. I'm curious what our dirt that, you know, that's back there in the woods. I wonder what the name of that is called. Yeah. Yeah. I was very cheaper. So we bought his house, I don't know, it was like 7 years ago. Yeah, we didn't have applicants. And all, they probably don't tell us about the huge press. But you know, kind of like, remember those?
I guess so.
They talk over the phone and all that.
Why don't you approve it? Slipped on it there, right?
Oh, yes. Okay. Thank you. I don't want to. Yeah. Oh, we have to start. Okay, good to know.
Hey, Katie.
So you can't. Trying to get it.
Yeah.
Okay. My favorite meeting. Yeah.
I thought it would.
I got you. Yeah, it's like. That's how it It is now 6:30. I'd like to go ahead and call the meeting to order. If everyone could stand for the pledge. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
right over to Katie.
Okay. All right, so welcome everyone to our first big budget meeting. Last time we met, we did kind of the overview of what you're going to be seeing. And now we're getting deeper into each cost center. You hear me, Amy, right? I do want to start with really a big shout out to our Future Business Leaders of America, because they did win for their 25th year in a row. So kudos to the team, and Angela and Erica for their leadership in bringing that state champ again. That's huge. So I'll be talking to Marco about bringing the team to be recognized at the board level. But you know, it's always nice to start on a good note as we hit budget season. So I do want to really do another shout out to Samantha and Jessica and the whole team. Michelle getting the binder started for us today. It's just been a work in progress. All the directors and principals continuing to meet, talk, adjust. We started printing everything around 4 o'clock this afternoon. There's still a little bit of things we changed slightly in the budget presentation, but everything will be updated and posted on the website. So things that you're seeing will go on the website tomorrow. And so we will kick it off. And what you have in your binders is the presentation. And I made it without the notes because feedback was we could barely read the slides. So we printed those so that you had them. Then you'll notice in each tab, you will have the summary of that cost center, then the summary of the salary and a summary of the health, and then you will have the details behind the summaries. So you will have all that, and then you have homework for the week. Nice. That you can really dive deeper into it. You know, Bob will be busy looking at what went up, what went down, and all of you will be looking at different things. I want you to know, because you have new people doing this, things got shifted around a little bit. So you might say, why isn't that, we have that position, but there's no budget there. That's because that position's probably got switched to a different spot. Okay, so you're going to see things like that. You're going to see things where it might have been in one school when it should have been in another school. Positions that might have needed to be split, we've split them. So there's things that you're going to notice, okay, why did that get changed? And then you're going to say, oh, there it is. Now I see what happened. Okay, so there's a lot of nuances like that. So as you dig and write notes on it, we gave you sticky notes you can take home with you. And if there's specific questions that you want answered for the next meeting, just shoot them to us and we'll do our best. So next week, we can start with, here were some of the questions that came up, and then we'll dive into the next set of cost centers.
And so in the past, and we don't always have to do the way it was in the past, but it was very helpful for these types of situations that you discussed. We had a note section over that said move to and the new account number or split with, so that we could actually track it that way instead of having to go through and hope we pick it up because it's been, this one teacher's been added to a teacher line down here and it's now really, you can't tell. So just as a suggestion to make it easier on us, especially if we have to go and explain things,
Yeah,
and
so
less questions for you.
we tried to put notes as we could. Sam did try to see where there were notes, so, but they're not, no, we didn't do all the notes, so there will be places there aren't notes.
Okay.
So you send a question, we can go in and add a note, okay? It's a work in progress.
They always are.
They always are. So what you're going to be focused on is really the presentation, and then we can dive deeper if we have time or things that in specific of what I go over. Okay. Right. So these are the cost centers we're going to review, which is regular ed instruction, special education, career and technical education, which we do not have, other instruction, student and staff support, school administration, and system administration. So our first cost center is cost center 1, which is regular education. So everything in this, really what I tell people is it's all about the classroom, what's going on for the students in the classroom. So it's the classroom teachers, it's unified arts positions, English language learner positions, gifted and talented. Then it's any educational technicians that are working with those programs. So there's pre-K ed techs that we have a kindergarten ed tech, we have an English language learner ed tech, gifted and talented. And then this is also in here substitute lines for those positions in this cost center. So these are all the positions that support students in their education in the general ed. Other things in this cost center is the building budgets. And so the administrators worked with their staff on this. They worked with us around what have been the trends in certain categories. And so you'll see things for their classroom supplies, instructional materials, textbooks and periodicals. So when you go through and you dive deeper in the lines, you're going to see these lines. The furniture line, field trips, student and staff recognition, copier leases, dues and fees, and travel reimbursement. So those are all the things that the buildings administrators build for their budget. So in cost center 1, we put a building stats handout, and it's in the back of the first cost center. So if you go to cost center 1 tab, after you see the detail, you will see a building stats. And what you have there is every building and the staffing in the building. Now, all of that staffing is not in cost center 1, but this is to show you, here's the building and here's what's in the building for positions. And then just so you have a good picture, like, you know, what positions, and you can see the 3 elementary schools side by side and what positions they have. And then you'll see the middle school and you'll see the high school. This will give you a good picture of the staffing that we have in our schools. And this, so it's current staffing, by the way. It's what's happening right now. It's not what's projected. It's what's going on right now in the building. Okay, so I wanted to make sure you had that as a reference point as you look at what's going on across the district with position. So building budgets. We want to give you an overview of the building budgets. Now remember, building budgets, they don't have a lot of lines that are theirs to populate. So these building budgets are not the salary, the benefits, it's not their staffing. It's those lines I was talking about, which is travel or supplies or textbooks. Those are the things you're going to see. So when you dive deeper, you're going to see salary first. You're going to see all the salaries, and you see all the benefits. You're going to see, and then you're going to see, oh, here are the lines that are left, and those are the building budgets. What? Right. So 5,300 is what the code is. So you can see that there are buildings that their building budgets went down, and then buildings that went up. The high school had an increase due to their physical education program. They're really trying to do some different things and need some different equipment. It's very exciting to see the kids really understanding that PE is a lifelong skills and knowledge, so that when they are older adults, they have things they can be doing during the outdoors. They had a group of kids sledding. You know, he's taken students fishing, you know, ice fishing. So exploring different things that you can do outside. Both of them are working hard for them to understand it's healthy. PE is about being healthy and being outdoors, doing exercises, learning different games. So you will see an increase for the PE. Also some furniture needs and some books and periodicals for different courses. So that's where their increase was for the high school. Robbie, did you have a question?
Yeah, well, I guess, Katie, I know we'll probably get into this later on, but do we have a number of things that got moved around? Like, I'm hearing things that we don't usually see in line item 1, right, Bob? Like copiers and stuff like that. Those are always usually in building administration or administration cost centers. So have we got a number or a percentage that we moved into this category that's new to us?
Okay, so, all right, there's different ways you can do a budget.
Right.
Okay, we did not do a budget by departments. So we can print it by departments, which is we can do the technology department, we can do Carrie Ricker.
Well, I guess that's not what I'm asking.
Oh.
I'm asking, typically there are things in this cost center that aren't there. Do we have a number that we can, okay, so let's say the budget's going up in this cost center 12% over last year. what percentage of that is new categories that got put in this budget? That's what I'm asking.
Yeah, and to answer
Because
your
it's gonna be
question,
easier for us to explain that.
Mhm.
If we have that information.
yeah, we did not reallocate a lot. If I use your specific
Right.
example of the copiers weren't moved around. So if you have a copier that is used by teachers in the teachers' room, it's
Right.
gonna be in this cost center.
Okay.
If you have a copier that is in the main office and used by the office of the principal, it's gonna be in that cost center. If you have a copier that's in the guidance office and it's used by the guidance department, it will be in that
Okay,
baseline.
so I guess what I need to know is, in this cost center, what things were moved into it that we normally don't see?
So let's keep going,
Yeah.
right? Because I have notes about each cost center.
Okay.
I don't know how it necessarily was done last time, okay, so. These things are in cost center one in every school department. Okay, so in every school department, these items are in cost center one, thank you. I didn't think it was on, I couldn't hear myself. And I'm loud, so, if you go on the main DOE site and you do cost centers, it tells you what needs to be in the cost centers. So these items are in the cost center. Now, maybe when you were presented the information before, it was presented differently, but these items were always in cost center one, most of them. When I say things are moving around, it might be a teacher at Carrie Ricker really should have been at the middle school, but it didn't change in here,
Okay,
okay? So it might be just the way you're hearing it differently.
I don't think I'm hearing it differently than what we were presented in the past.
Okay.
Am I right, Bob?
Yeah, I mean, there's been a lot of different presentations, but.
Well,
I think
if I can
that
add-
kind of comes up with the notes
Right.
on what might be new in here that was someplace else before.
Yeah.
That helps explain
Right.
those types of movements. So I think that's why, if you know, last year it was miscoded or DOE has changed where they want to see it. Those are the types of things that if they get noted in the comment section, we can pick up on that and then, and especially if you tell us the account number that it goes to.
Yeah, and you'll see some of those notes, like a good example is the split between some of the administrators, right? So you'll see notes for that. But your specific question about the copiers, like if you look at the copier lease line in this particular cost center, you've got 3 years back.
Right.
So if you see like, oh, that stayed pretty consistent, or, maybe the lease was up and so it was reduced, it's not moved. But I'll try to point out anything that we have reallocated.
All right.
Okay, so right now I'm just giving you information in a big picture. All right, so the next slide, just to let you know, on March 13th, I pulled the enrollment numbers from each grade level and just moved it up a grade level. All right, and so this is projected and the number of teachers projected. So when I tell you what the changes are a little bit in this cost center, some of it is reflected here. So what you can see is really what we're coming to is 5 teachers per grade level. Right, and to get there, there is a position reduction at Sabatis Primary School. And then there's a position reduction at Carrie Ricker for classroom. So now every grade level has 5 teachers. And then you can see what the average class sizes will be. And then you see the overall class sizes. So you get a feel of what are we in our range of class sizes. Because that was one of your goals, is to really continue to look at class sizes. We are looking at essentials differently, that return on investment. So we see success in some regard, and then we see challenges, right? So we're looking at really how do we best educate the students with the teachers, with the grade level? What are the needs through our grade level discussions? And then they'll look at how is it going to be next year. Okay. So the next slide, I'm getting into the high school a little bit because they're not as simple as saying, oh, this number of teachers. So I got some good feedback from meeting with we talked with the city, with the towns, as we said, the 3 towns. And some good feedback was, we always hear at budget time, the high needs of special education students and how much to educate. it'd be lovely to hear what else, we educate, obviously, a variety of students. And so we thought it was important to add some information about the high school. Marco, you want to be available to chime in? So we asked the high school to put some things together, and this came a little bit came from you, Bob. The last meeting, you asked some really good questions. And our guidance director, Mel, was in the audience, and she was like, I'm gonna get some data together, continue to gather data. So you'll see here where our students are going. And you can see that graduates in 2022, we had 88 students graduate. 38% of those students went to 4-year college, 32% went to 2-year college. That's a good bulk of our population is
Or
going
trade school.
or a trade school. Correct, thank you. Yes.
They're really two different.
Yeah.
Pieces.
They went on to further their post-secondary education. And then how percent that went to in the military, and then that percent that goes to workforce or other. So we wanted to just give you some stats of what our students are doing after graduation. The other part, which we were asked about, is LRTC, Lewiston Regional Technical Center. And I've been attending those meetings with Mel, and she is a go-getter for getting students in the program. And you can see in our stats, our kids are getting a good advantage there. And as you know, the high school is also working hard about what to do about Larry retiring. So to continue to have even more opportunities for students. So you can see here that in 2022, we had in our 11th grade, out of 106 students, we had 30% attending LRTC. That's a large number of students.
Right, we can get that many seats.
Right. Well, what happens is if other schools don't fill them, we jump on them, which is good. And Marco, do you want to speak to it?
Yeah, just, Katie started tonight talking about FBLA. And, we have an amazing business program.
Yeah, Marco, come up to the table and so you can use the mic. So we can hear you. If anyone doesn't have hands, you want this money? Oh, yeah, there. Wait, Marco, you can go right here and there's some.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I was just gonna say that Katie started the evening talking about FBLA, and we have a robust business program, probably the best business program in the state. And when it comes to spots at LRTC, students don't go to LRTC for business programs because they can get that education right at Oakville High School, which allows for Mel to play some poker with the other guidance directors for the sending schools. And so she's a really good poker player and able to get students what they need. If there's an interest, we get them into a program. And we have a really good relationship with the director over there, Rob Callahan, and he's very easy to work with. So if we have a student that man, we really need to get this kid in a program. We know you don't have any slots left. Like, what can we come up that's a creative alternative? And he's willing to work with us on that.
And another shout out, last month, we had 2 Oak Hill High School students, Student of the Month for LRTC. So that's gonna be my superintendent's update this week. So in addition to that, we also offer AP courses. So here's a variety of AP courses that are offered, and then we have some notes there that if they're not offered as AP, the advanced placement course, they are often offered as dual enrollment courses. So if they can't run it as an AP, but they can run it as a dual enrollment, that's how they do that. They look at trying to have a minimum of 5 students in the course to decide whether the course is going to run or not. But what's most important is we're flexible and nimble to say, okay, this student really wants this. If we can't offer it, is there some other way they can access it? So students can feel like, well, even though I'm in a small high school, there's opportunities I can continue to my education. So you have a list of AP classes. And then the next slide, we have a list of the dual enrollment courses. And remember, our teachers, in order to offer dual enrollment, need to be considered and certified by that college to be considered also a college instructor, so that what they give for their credits would count towards college. So you can see we have really good partnerships with University of Maine at Fort Kent, Thomas College. So that's great. And we visited, Mark and I went to a breakfast at Southern Maine Technical College about what they want to offer. So, you know, Central Maine Community College, we're always kind of looking for what is there for our students. Do you want to add anything, Martha?
So I think it summed up nicely. Thank you.
So it's really important to share that your investment is making a difference. So cost center one's notes, and this is where the kind of thing, Robbie, you're getting at, what are those things in cost center one? So you can see with the salary increases for those employees that are in this cost center, remember, this isn't all of the employees, this is cost center one's employees. There is an increase of 152,000 for their salaries. And we also looked at increasing the substitute costs for lost prep time. When we don't have enough substitute, we have teachers covering teachers. That we raised that by 44,500. To offset that, we had things moving around, you know, looking at positions. So as I shared with you, at the elementary level, we reduced a Carrie Ricker position and a Sabias primary position. There was also a Carrie Ricker position that was part of the move of 5th grade going into the middle school. That position was sitting on the books. It was not advertised nor filled. That has been taken out of the budget. Okay. And then we have the science position at Oak Hill High School that they have not filled, and we have reduced that position. Marco's aware of it and has been already thinking through with the department, how are we going to have one less position. And as you all know, we are currently in negotiations with professional staff. So overall in that cost center has increased by 1.23% at $91,851.02.
So the salary is without those three positions.
Correct,
Okay.
correct. Any other questions on cost center one? So cost center two is special education. So this is all that department. That's the teachers, special education, the educational technicians, the OTPT contracted services, occupational therapy, physical therapy, our speech and language teachers and contracted services, our board certified behavior analysis analysts, special ed director position, and psychological services. We also have, which is not on your PowerPoint, but it's on the new one, one social worker who is funded through this special ed because they mostly work with the special ed program. So also in this cost center is seed money, which is payments to the Department of Education. We'll talk more in a later slide for billable main care costs. And we are budgeting in the general fund 19 students for out of district placement. Working with Nancy, and Nancy has been really working hard on this budget, we know that this is going to be an impact area for the community, really looking hard at the budget. She's also going to look at local entitlement funds, which are federal funds, and she is going to be putting in the federal fund additional tuition money in case there's a shift and we need more. So working together in partnership to make sure we have the funds necessary for our special education students. Nancy has also put together some slides, and she's at the ready and willing to jump in anytime. Thank you, Nancy. So here you can see where our students were outplaced. These are the different outplaced schools that we access. And they each have their own costs. They each have their tuition rate. And so Nancy's projections are really based on where do our students attend? What is the tuition? And how often do our students attend those programs? And so you can see how many of our students in K-8 and how many in 9 and 12.
I ask a big picture question.
Sure.
Probably won't impact the budget, but forward thinking. My question is, what would it take to keep these students in district?
And we've talked about that. So one of the challenges, staffing. You gotta have the right staff. So we've talked about that. You know, space and staffing. So it would take a lot to bring them back in. You know, I think Nancy, you would say a lot of the IEP meetings, they discuss transitioning back in. And so she works with her staff too on who's ready to come back. Have we done everything we can to intervene before placing them out? I mean, it's amazing to go into our programs and what our staff does, really to not have them go to out of district placements. And our administration and support staff, it's wonderful. Do you want to comment on that, Nancy?
Yeah, I just want to, like, you have a nice.
No, it's not. Is
Okay.
it on? Oh, it's working. Yes.
I just want to say though, not all of those students are students that our IEP teams determined to put in a placement. Some of those students are move-ins. And so they came to us with an IEP and they came to us already placed at that point. And another, just thing to keep in mind, these are very fluid numbers. Kids, it doesn't mean that all of those students would be there for a full year or have been in our schools for a full year already. I'm the case manager for all of the outplaced students. So like Katie said, we are keeping a very close eye and attending all their meetings. We have transitioned back one student so far this year. I suspect we'll probably transition back at least one more next year.
Yeah, that's just a question I have.
Oh, yeah.
I think. Do you have kind of a microscope put on us around outplacement? And if there's investments that we can make, and like Robbie said, the new school probably would have helped. If there's investments we can make to eliminate that, so the students can go to school in their own daily living. As a board.
If I can just say one more thing, I think when we have students right from kindergarten or even pre-K on up, I think that's where we have a better outcome, we have a better chance. So I know we will talk about BCBAs, but they're putting a lot of time and energy towards lower grades. So it's not just helping with behavior plans, but it's really making a difference in the skill set of our teachers and those other things. So that, I think it's hard to foresee. We don't have a crystal ball to know if we hadn't had that, but it's definitely, I think, impacting our ability to keep kids in district.
Thank you.
So this is the next slide is showing you what is in the budget for positions by school. Okay, so you can see that at Spies Primary, there's one teacher, 3 ed tech ones that are in the budget. Then in Libby Tozier, there is 1 teacher, 1 ed tech 1, 3 ed tech 2s, and 1 ed tech 3. Then we have a Carrie Ricker, 4 teachers, 2 ed tech 1s, 5 ed tech 2s, and 4 ed tech 3s. At the middle school, we have 5 teachers, 2 ed tech 1, 5 ed tech 2s, and 7 ed tech 3s. And then at the high school, 4 teachers, 1 ed tech 1, 1 ed tech 2, and 2 ed tech 3s. We have not been able to fill all the ed tech positions. Amy and Jenny would say, we've been looking and looking and looking. And trying, and right now I have put on a soft hold on them not to hire right now. Okay. So we've been talking a lot about those positions. I have reduced 2 of the ed tech positions that are not filled. So there are still openings, there's still positions, and Jill, you had your hand up.
Well, I just want to make sure that we know that the special education is not just for the physically disabled or mentally disabled, there's also our behavior program kiddos too. So
That's
sometimes being in district, the program isn't right for that person, and not always just the school district that makes that decision either. It may be the parents who make that decision to have their child go out of the district too. So there's
Oh, that's a very
just
good
making
point.
sure that the board also understands that it's not just the school who decides, it's also the parents who decide if their child gets placed outside of the district.
Very true. Some parents don't want their child to go out of district, right? And some here, and some parents do, right?
So are these numbers fluid too, depending on the students? So if
Correct.
students change buildings, we're gonna see.
Yes, this is our best thinking for projected. They will, we also have positions that are for an ed tech 3, but we can't find someone with that. You know, they need close to 3 years college, they need 3 years of college. So we may have somebody who has 2 years of college that is in an ed tech 3 position, but being paid as an ed tech 2. Right, so you see sometimes a differential there, or the same with ed tech 2. We have somebody that's qualified but only has 1 year. So they're being paid as an ed tech 1 because of the 1 year of education, but they're in an ed tech 2 role. And of course, they all have stipulations. So if they're in ed tech 1, they have less independence and have more teacher oversight. And ed tech 3 can be pretty much on their own with consulting and direction from the teacher. So that's a challenge. But if we get somebody who's really good and we can make a space and make a spot for them to help the student, that's what we do. Our contracted services, we have PT, we have occupational therapists. As Nancy said, the board certified behavior, the BCBAs, psychologists, and 2 school psychologists that help with assessments and our testing. And then, you know, all the needs that come up in IEP meetings, what students have. And then the BCBAs are really the proactive. How do we help support students be successful in their programming in order to access regular education? Because our hope is that the student doesn't have to be self-contained the entire day, that they're transitioning also into regular classrooms. And so that's a lot of that work in supporting those programs. Do you want to make any other mention?
No, I just wanted to reiterate that the BCBA is really not just addressing behavior plans, but really professional development for our teachers in the area of behavior.
And you will see an update on this slide versus what's in your packet. So the update will be reflected on what's digital. For speech therapists, we also have a contracted service for speech, and we do, you know, service most students in districts. So we changed that to district wide, but there is a contracted professional, and then there's also a contracted service.
That we would like to employ them. This year, we had to go with a contracted remote service. And they've done really well. However, the ideal is to have an in-person.
So hard.
Yeah. Should be. So Nancy does a good job of watching and listening and trying to find folks. Main care C, Nancy, do you want to explain main care C? Because it's not always that easy to understand.
Sure, so when it's not just students who are outplaced, but the lion's share of the seed money certainly does apply to students or special purpose private schools. But seed money, well, students who have behavior services, whether it be section 28 for cognitive behavioral health, or if it's section 65, which would really be for behavior, so autism versus a student with emotional disabilities. There are medically ordered services that are billable to Medicare. BHPs, we don't have BHPs are ed techs who have received an additional certification from the state, and that becomes a billable service to Medicare. Day treatment services are billable services to Medicare. OT, PT, speech are billable services to Medicare. So when students are getting those services at an outplacement, those services are billed to main care if the parent has provided consent for us to bill main care, and that student has to have main care itself. So 38% of that claim on any of those services that I just mentioned is paid by us. The other percentage of that claim is paid by the feds. So we don't pay it outright, it is deducted quarterly from our subsidy. So 38% of every claim for every student who's outplaced in any of those areas that I said is then submitted, and then it's the Department of Education pays it to Medicare on our behalf, and it's deducted quarterly from our source. We also, to some degree, have revenue from that because we also do some degree of billing for our services, in which case we are paid all of that, because we're not paying out the 90%, we're getting full, like,
Thank you, Nancy. Question, Robin?
So I guess my question would be, if we had the room and the space and the staff, we could take outplacements from other districts, right? And it'd be an income for us through this program?
yes,
Yeah,
Lisbon does that, so
Right.
in the Garden Street School,
Right, yeah.
yeah, and it's considered revenue. Yeah.
yeah, okay, yeah, yeah.
We also want to make mention that it's not in this cost center, it's in transportation, but we do transport students to the out of district placement. So that's an additional cost. And you can see that we transport 35 students to and from school. We contract with Bill Gordon and United Ambulance. So working all the time to make sure, just like we're struggling with drivers, they sometimes struggle with drivers, and so we have to work as a team. We have to call another school department and say, are you driving through on the way to the same location? Can you pick up some of our students, and vice versa? So Nancy and John Barney work hand in hand to make sure our students are getting to and from the placement.
Additionally, there's a very small amount that goes to parents for parent reimbursement who are, for whatever reason, transporting their child.
So as you can see, the increase is in tuition. And this increase is at $181,991.95, which is a 60% increase in here. Just looking at the budget, where we are, those costs, we feel to be fiscally responsible, we need to put that number up. The other thing is main care seed. So in the past, not last year, not for this year, but in the years past, it had been at $200,000. This year, it was put at $100,000. That's not, we need $215,000. So because of that reduction for this year from 200 to 100, it has to go back up again. We are going to be short in this category this year. So we are absorbing that through the funds and looking at this cost center. And we don't know if at the end of the year, we're going to have to do a transfer from other cost centers into this cost center to try to mitigate the discrepancy there. So that's just really bringing it up to what it had been in the past. This was the first year it had been at 100,000. Be clear on that.
And you had asked to point out lines that had been reallocated. So while we're talking about tuition, last year, pretty much the total amount of the tuition was split down the middle between our lower grade levels and our upper grade levels. So this year you'll see a split that's more allocated to where the students in the chart that were shown.
Right.
So it's more reflective of our actuals. So you'll see, some of those tuition lines, fluctuate more than you would anticipate. Like some might be higher than that, 60% increase, and some might be quite a bit lower, but they're, rather than just a split, it's more in line with where our students are placed. If you'd like the lines, I can provide them for you so that you can peek at them or highlight them if you want. So give me just a moment. So those lines start on page 9 of your detail and cost center 2. And I believe each of them has a note that says increase in outplaced students. But the title for the lines are tuition public, tuition private, and then you'll see the cost center code ending in either 950 or 990. So there's a total of 5 tuition lines, and then the main care seat that we've been talking about. Is about halfway down on page 10. And the name of it is behavioral day treatment. And there's a note accompanying that as well, so let me know if you need more direction, but I can point right to it.
Do we know why it was reduced?
No idea.
Like a lot of things are reduced in a way is we're trying to keep the number down to what the board is willing to pay for the voters. You know, so
That could have played a part.
100,000 there versus 100,000 in maintenance or 100,000 in staffing. Not really sure, and I don't know what it actually cost us in the years before either. If there was a trend that we probably only needed 100,000. I don't know.
Yeah, I can get you those numbers if you want, but it was trending up.
And is the district notified when students are eligible, like our main care fee that?
You mean, do they, if they qualify, if they don't have main care money?
So if they do.
If they do have
in
main,
the middle of school.
you want to?
So when we are at IEP meetings and a student is, let's just say coming to us, we ask if the student has Medicare. Parents don't, and then we provide a form where they would provide us the consent to bill main care. Parents can decline. So in the middle of the year, if the student gets main care, we are not notified of that. Parents would have to notify us of that. We know if it is, if we know personally, if I know a parent has been trying to get main care, I am checking in with that parent.
But I'm not sure parents know that. I don't think that's something that's communicated very clearly, that it could help with this.
Good. All right, so as I told you, also in this, we reduced 2 unfilled ed tech positions. Still in the budget are 4 unfilled ed tech positions, 3 for the middle school and 1 for the high school. So those have remained in the budget. Right, and 1 that was in special ed has been recoded to regular instruction. So you'll see a move. We had a kindergarten ed tech that was in cost center 2 that should have been in cost center 1. And then overall, the cost center 2, it's up 6.65% increase. At 275,431.
Almost half of that is the increase in the season.
Right, half of that's the seed money. Cost center 3, I only noted here, but our funds go to the Lewiston School Department for that. Cost center 4, this is other instruction, and this is positions, the athletic director position, athletic stipends, co-curricular stipends, athletic trainer. And other items are funds to pay for game day workers, officials, uniforms, equipment, supply, and graduation costs are in cost center 4. So just noting, you have here in the slides, I don't need to go through them, but you can see our participation rate in co-curricular activities. We have students very involved in different clubs we offer in curriculum. That stipend group meets every year to talk about what stipends are being used, which stipends are needed. So that has been reviewed, and that will be coming to the board. The other slides that the athletic director provided is our participation in fall sports, winter sports, and our spring sports. You can also see where the co-op, which you had approved last meeting, so that we have different co-ops as well. And we have schools reach out to us, and we reach out to schools to offer other things for our students in these areas.
So the 32 students under the cross are from all the different schools, not just ours.
Correct. So notes from this cost center is the stipend base is increasing from 37,500 to 40,000. So it's based on the base salary of teachers. And then we have in here also, Brian Daniels is putting in for purchasing new uniforms. So, girls and boys soccer uniforms for the middle school, and then uniforms for the boys soccer team, field hockey and cross country. And then in addition, we had increases from vendors for graduation, so that is reflected in here. Those were the impact from this cost center.
Do we get any reimbursement or do we pay out reimbursement when we co-curricular with other districts? Do we know for like uniform?
There's no cost with the co-op.
Okay,
We are not a host of the co-op,
right,
another school district co-op. So I asked Brian, and I said, well,
Yeah.
what is our cost? And he's like, very minimal costs.
Okay.
They cover that. And if they did, then he would. guide
well,
the
I'm just thinking about our lacrosse uniforms compared to, you know what I mean?
Right,
But we're getting it on the other end, so.
correct,
it's-
yes, yep. So the difference for cost center for this increase of 4.74 at $23,578.94.
And do we know what officiating went up? Right.
He could not be here tonight.
Yeah.
He hopefully will be here next week and he can answer that. He did put in increases. There were increases and I think there are notes for that, right? Yes.
Yeah, he added notes to the professional services that cover, so you'll see
Right,
like
okay.
adjusted for inflation, so I can have them send us the exact numbers, or I can look in my big green budget binder and look through the
Yeah,
notes, but
That's
he
fine.
did adjust that for inflation.
I just knew that there was an increase
There
in
was.
officiating and, yeah.
Yep,
Oh, you'll see that the athletic director position, it had been at the high school. We have split that and put 25% of that position at the middle school because he does cover both high school and middle school. So his salary and benefits are split between the two locations. And you'll see that.
and there's a note in those salary lines to show that.
The next cost center has a lot going on in it, and this is the assistant superintendent runs, Kathy Martin runs a lot of this cost center for the instruction department, instruction, I know it's not coming to you, but improvement instruction, thank you, improvement instruction. And then this is also the technology department. So this cost center is all about supporting students and staff. So you can see the school counselors that we have. We have one administrative assistant at the high school that helps support the guidance office. We have social workers. One is in, as I told you, was in cost center 2, is a special ed focus. The librarians, the nurses. We will continue to fund a nurse next year using the ARP funds. So that we will still be fully staffed with nurses. And then our technology staff, there is a change and you'll see in a later part of this presentation, we're looking at restructuring the technology department. So it's noted here what it is, and I'll talk more about it when we get to that section. Other items in this is anything to do with professional development, anything with the photocopier printer maintenance that support the departments, assessments that we use district-wide, supplies, travel reimbursement, professional development, tuition reimbursement, state conference fees, civil rights teams, equipment, contract services, and hardware and software. That's all covered in this cost center. So Kathy did an excellent job putting her slides together as well to cover, so you have a good picture of, wow, what do we support for our students in this cost center? So Kathy, do you want to take us through?
Yeah, so you'll see the biggest increase for me is gonna be in tuition reimbursement. So with you saw our hiring frenzy. This year, we hired a lot of new staff. And some of those needed certain certifications. So some came in as conditional, some came in emergency certification. And it's really important that they are able to take classes in order to continue their certification.
I didn't budget for as much tuition reimbursement last year. So during COVID, a lot of our teachers weren't taking classes. And then all of a sudden, we're starting to see an increase, and that's because of certification. So you will see that there's a $50,000 increase this year. I will say I did spend all of that this year, but I begged, borrowed, and stealed from every line item I had in order to cover that this current year. But in order to really showcase, I mean, I did buy a book, we didn't send teachers on conferences. We were really just providing that tuition reimbursement. So it is up. I did a survey of our staff, and we do have 66 courses that have been or 66,000, 41 courses have been asked to be taken. It's about 66,000. And that's not including any of the other new hires that we may have. So 75 is about what we've been covering. I decreased my professional development. I'm going to use a little bit of my ARP funds, as well as leveraging my Title II for that decrease to cover that. And my other two line items, I had zero difference, but I already costed out what we use it for and what the cost will be for next year. Next slide. I tried to give you some understanding of what our curriculum is. So what is our literacy programs? We have from Really Great Reading, which is our phonics. We have Integrity, which is our phonemic awareness. And pre-K 8, we use Lucy Calkins for reading and writing. We also ensure that we have a classroom library in pre-K 8. So that way, it doesn't matter if we have a brand new teacher, every classroom is equipped with books. So if we want to make sure our literacy scores go up, we need to make sure that kids have great mentor text as well as literature in their hands. So we make sure we have provided that. So we've been doing that. It's taken me about 9 years to get that, but we have that. Tech programs that support our literacy is we use Freckle and we use IXL as well. For mathematics, we have investigations pre-K 5 or K5, sorry. Open up math in 6-8. High school uses textbooks, and that comes out of Marco's budget lines. For tier 2 instruction, we use Do the Math, we use LLI, and we again have classroom libraries that have been supporting the math instruction as well. So that's been a piece that we've been boosting. And we use Freckle and IXL as well to support that tier 2 instruction. Science programming in pre-K 4, we use Freckle. It's 5-8, we use Elevate Science. And we also have some STEM materials that are included with that. And this past year, we also got some lab carts that I know the CAI group is going to get to experience. So I know you're a little jealous if you're not on CAI. We get to see some of the VR, AR stuff and some other lab materials. For science, we also use Freckle. In social studies, there's not as much curriculum out there, especially some of the content of our standards are very main driven. So that is one area that we're going to try to focus on, building some PD for our staff next year. We had started doing some of that work before COVID, and we're going to pick it up next year. So we do use Freckle for social studies. The middle school uses TCI. They have access to that. And then again, some classroom libraries and mentor text to support that, that learning. It's kind of an overview of what our programs are. Social emotional is also a curriculum that we have to ensure that we have. We have zones of regulation, second step, and we have some executive functioning materials and tools throughout the district that we support.
Any questions around curriculum? Let's give you, this is what this department handles. The next part is the technology, and Norma Jean wanted to be here tonight. She is homesick, and I told her I didn't even want her online. So we need her helping back with us. So we really have talked a lot with her department, and she's really done some thinking about how to best address the needs of the district with our department. And also our director of operations, running maintenance and transportation, needing an administrative assistant position. It's a big job that also requires support. So the two departments talked about how can we bring an administrative assistant position in? And also how can we reorganize in a way to best address our technology needs? So you can see here, our current staffing is we have 4 technicians. We have 1 technician position that is funded with ARP funds, and we have a data specialist. We're proposing for next year to have 2 technology technicians. 1 will also remain in the technology in the ARP funds. We will still have a data specialist, and then creating a network specialist. So that's more on the hardware. How are things talking to each other? And then part of the half of the admin assistant position. And so how we did that is reducing 1 technician and 1 of 3 open bus driving positions. So we haven't been able to fill all the positions. There are 3. So in talking about, well, we have a high need for administrative assistant position, we need to look at things a little bit differently. So that's how we were able to create the network specialist position, which would be a district central office position, and then the administrative assistant position. You can see there was a cost savings with looking at this. A decision for the following budget will be without ARP funds. We have to watch, could we manage with 2 technicians, or will we have to bring that 1 technician position into the budget? So we'll be watching how well that works. Talking to the technology department today, you know, it's going to be more of a ticket system. It's not going to be that they're available, you know, they're in the building, you can grab them. It's really going to have to be following their ticket system, which they do have, and then go where the need is. That will be a shift. But the network specialist can help continue to support, and the director also support. So they feel comfortable with this change.
Yes.
Yes,
An admin assistant, is that a district?
it would probably be in central office to support John, and yeah, those 2 directors. Because right now, Kathy and I, and really Sam, have Michelle's position, and then we have a position that's in cost center 2, administrative assistant, to support special ed department. So this is a needed area. Then what was provided was the same thing, kind of like the curriculum. What do we have for technology? What is being supported? And we, you know, I want to do a really big shout out to our staff yesterday, our teachers, our technicians, our other staff supports, our unified art. Everyone really did an excellent job yesterday. We were checking in. We had 100% staff participation yesterday. We really, I think, high number, 75 to 80% of students were on. So it was nice to hear. We got feedback around, boy, we got to see another side of our students, right? Especially at the elementary, learning about pets that they had, you know, what's their favorite thing that they eat for snack at home. So I think they really enjoyed seeing them, and kids were very animated, you know, very bubbly. It's almost like we see each other every day, but we see each other on the screen. It's even more exciting. It's like all brand new. So really good shout out to the staff. You know, I told him I would make the decision by noon on Monday, right? If you saw me on Monday with John Barney and in the central office going, boy, the weather does not look that bad tomorrow morning. I mean, we went back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, and then it was like, we're just gonna say remote learning day. But that was the struggle on Monday. And as we saw yesterday, and then this morning, of course, people struggling in the power and so forth. So I do want to say, I want to do say that really, because of our technology support, we were able to do that, and it is really well done. So you can see here, and this is by site, so a lot of district licenses are in here. That's what you're going to see. We do better when we bid out as a district. So you'll see that's our technology. You'll see what we do for assessments. I'm just going to go through these slides. You'll see other things like, you know, our whole Swift emergency messenger, I think we've used that quite a bit. And also Mosaic, you know, anything that supports our Tower School, anything like that. The changes, which I'm gonna skip to the, keep going, yeah, keep going, yeah. The changes here are the tuition reimbursement. So what Kathy said is we have bumped that line from 25,000 to 75,000. That's a big increase. We've also looked at ARP grant, and when we went through the budget for technology, there was a lease payments still there for our technology purchasing. We aren't purchasing technology. We don't have a lease payment, but they were in the budget. And I know why, because they're markers. So when I talked to NJ, do you think we're gonna need lease purchasing, and should we keep that as a marker? And she does not see that. With MLTI and getting new laptop devices, we can cascade, and she feels there won't be a need for a lease payment for at least a couple of years, 2 years, maybe even 4 years. So what we did is we took those lease payments and we are going to be funding the items from the ARP. So ARP will not be supporting technology except for one position, and that's the technician. Other than that, all the ARP money towards technology has come into the general fund. So it's just reallocating those funds. Okay. Also an increase in here is moving things out of transportation. Yes, Bob.
But so it has been a longstanding policy of the board that anytime we accept any type of grants that put a position in, the caveat was it would not lead to a permanent position. So if we are now funding these technology positions, not with the grant, but with our general funds, these were positions that were originated under a grant. I don't believe those positions, without coming back to the board again, could be approved as regular positions and not grant funded.
There's no positions coming in from the grant to general fund in here. This is,
I thought that's just what you said.
no, all the technology software, so thank you. Software, you had a lot of your software was in ARB. All of that has come in, not positions.
Yeah, I
The only
understand you said you were
I'm
moving the
sorry.
position.
So the only position ARP funds for technology is a technician, which you funded this year and you'll fund next year with ARP funds. So I'm sorry I confused you with what I said. So it's all the software and hardware that was in there.
But you did say earlier on that we were gonna have a discussion about that
Yes,
position.
for next
For
year,
next year's
exactly, Robbie, right. Yeah. So iPads purchased for buses, so our bus drivers have iPads and hotspots that have been in transportation, and that really should be in cost center 5. That's one of those switches, so that's why we noted it.
Can we get an explanation? I mean, what are those basically used for, Jonathan? Is that the software for pickups? Is that on that? iPad?
Specifically with the iPad, no, but those iPads are gonna be, and Norman, you can speak on this a little bit better, but those iPads are gonna be reallocated for instructional purpose for students.
Right.
We have some grant money that we purchased Android applications because we have to have an Android platform to support that, but in essence, a tablet for a bus driver is meant for that software and then also for clocking in and out purposes.
Oh, great. Okay. Yep, thank you. I just wanted to explore, you know.
No,
yeah,
that's great that you
absolutely.
asked that.
Absolutely.
Okay. And then there's the halftime assistant position. So the increase to this cost center is 2.88%, $73,366.58. And most of that is the tuition, raising the tuition reimbursement. The next two cost centers are around administration. So cost center 6 is system administration, and that's the superintendent's, the central office, which has the superintendent, assistant superintendent, business manager, the administrative assistant position, payroll, benefits clerk, and accounts payable receivable clerk. It also is legal fees. You'll see legal fees in there, school board costs for your fees and so forth, and paying you that big bucks you're getting to be here. Mhm. And then travel reimbursement, any office supplies needed to pay the auditor, memberships, postage, and copy release.
If I may,
Yes.
just because somebody really believed that it was $5, it's $25 a meeting.
Oh, okay, thank you, Bob, for clarifying that.
I wanna
You're right,
say
they
that
might
we're getting
believe that.
$10.
You're right, they might believe that.
That's required by law, right? The $25.
Say,
That's
hey,
minimum.
no, that's not true. No, that was, I think we could have gone from, I think when we formed 10, 12, whatever it was, I think it was something like $15 to $25. We went to the 25 then knowing that we didn't think we were going to be able to come back to the community in 5 or 6 years or in 10 years and ask for an increase in the stipends for the school board members. And so,
Yeah, you often see it in a city charter. The notes here is the contract negotiations for central office support staff is currently going on, and you'll hear more next week. So the increase in this, cost center is 3%, which is $25,693.48. The last one, cost center 7 is school administration. This is all around the principal's office needs, so that's what's going to come under here. So you can see here the elementary. We talked a lot about SBS being a principal position, and that is what we put in the proposed budget. And we are in discussions with their association around this change. So we're still working through that, and we'll be bringing you more information around that as well. But right now in the budget is 2 building principals at the elementary level, 1 assistant principal, and 3 school secretaries. The middle school, 1 principal and 1 school secretary. This is another one where the dean and the assistant principal position for the middle school are in the ARP funds. So next year there'll be discussion around the assistant principal position for at least minimally that going into the general fund. And the high school, 1 building principal, assistant principal, and a school secretary. Then other items attached to the principal's office is their postage meter, copy releases, office supplies, dues and fees, staff recognition, travel reimbursement, graduation supplies, and books and periodicals. As I told you in the notes about the status primary administrator replaces, and so you'll see this, that there is not going to be an assistant principal position at the middle school. Based on the Sabatis principal position. Then you will, and then I noted here again around the ARP and what that's covering. And then what you will notice is that the positions for Carrie Ricker and Libby Tozier were at 1 school. And those positions have been split 50-50 between Libby Tozier and Carrie Ricker. So you'll see them in both places, those positions. The increase to this cost center is 2.25% increase at $23,196.47. Then I gave you a summary of the first 7 cost centers. So you can see by cost center what the increase was, what the percentage difference, and then overall, we're at an increase of $513,117.92, or a 3% increase in this as a whole, this section of the budget. And then a reminder about next meeting.
Katie, can you talk a little bit about the contracts that are being negotiated and how that might impact this number at the bottom?
Chrissy, can you make sure you're
Yeah,
using the
sorry.
microphone?
Yes.
My question was, can Katie talk a little bit about the contracts that are being negotiated and how that might impact this bottom line?
So in good faith bargaining, we have budgeted in cost center 1, what that we, in good faith, we put funds there for negotiation. Potential, correct. It's all potential. It's very hard when you're in negotiations because you have to, in good faith, put funding there. Doesn't mean we'll be there, but And you'll be getting an update at the next school board meeting where we are with that one. The other impact with the central office, we also did the same thing. And then with the administration, we're in discussion around changes in those positions, because remember, Oak Hill middle school principal position was a shared position and now it's there. So we're talking through that and we'll bring that forward. But we have to project what may or may not happen. So any other questions? You know, you've got a lot to digest over the next week and looking through and noting. And sending us questions, and we'll make sure as we get questions that we maybe put a document together. Give us a question, here's the answer, and share that with all of you, and then the public can see what you're asking and read the answers. And then next time we really are covering maintenance, operation, transportation, food service, our nutrition program, and adult education. Those will be the next during our regular meeting.
Jonathan pretty much has the whole night.
Jonathan has the whole, yes, he knows. And Kathy, right, we were working today while simultaneously working with his budget and working on this as well.
Seeing as there's no more questions or discussion, I'll go ahead and declare this meeting adjourned at 7:42.
Thank you, and those are your notebooks. Please bring them back next week because we're gonna fill them with the next group of present.